Okay, let's go ahead and talk just a little bit about some of the battles of the American Revolution, some of the more significant battles that take place. Early on, summer of 1776, we had a battle for New York City. If you recall, after Bunker Hill, the British had left Boston and gone to Canada, and New York is the return of the British and the British Army to the colonial world. They come back in the summer of 1776. They bring with them about 32,000 soldiers. And the commanders in charge, there were a few who were notable. The guy in charge of the whole thing was a guy by the name of General William Howe. His brother, actually, Admiral Howe, is in charge of the British Navy when they come back. And another one of the lead generals who really goes ahead and plays a more significant role for the British in the revolution to come is a guy by the name of General Charles Burgoyne, or excuse me, John Burgoyne. And so those are some of the key commanders who participate on the side of the British. For the Americans, we were outnumbered. We only had about 23,000 troops, so we were the smaller of the two forces, and our leader was obviously George Washington. If you had to describe the battle was really not just one battle. It was actually a running battle. It was a series of battles that all took place kind of in a row, and they are characterized as one American retreat after another. George Washington starting off in what today would be New York City, Long Island, then retreating to Manhattan, eventually retreating out of New York altogether to White Plains and to New Jersey. And so it's really a series of battles that takes place not just in a day or even days, but over a series of weeks um, as George Washington tries to make sure his army can stay in the fight. And so it's one retreat after another. And it really starts to shake the confidence of the Second Continental Congress and the abilities of George Washington. And George Washington realizes that it's not only the Congress that begins to question; it's really also his own soldiers. So Washington realizes by the wintertime that he's in desperate need of a victory if he wants to go ahead and keep the morale of his troops up, and he wants to go ahead and have an army at all after a long, hard winter. And so in December, right around Christmas, Washington makes a decision that he's going to go ahead and try to attack the British forces. It's important to note here that not all of the British forces were actually British. The British had actually hired mercenaries to supplement their forces. They were Hessians. Hessians were German soldiers, and so Washington decides to attack some of these soldiers because they're not quite as well trained, not quite as motivated as the British regulars. And so Washington launches an attack at a place Trenton and Princeton. Those are in New Jersey. Washington had retreated all the way to Pennsylvania. So he crosses the Delaware River, which is till this day the border between Pennsylvania and New Jersey. He crosses the Delaware, and on Christmas Eve marches his soldiers to Trenton, which is today the capital of New Jersey. Uh, True to form, the Germans had been having a good time celebrating Christmas the night before, and so when they wake up on Christmas morning, they are, we'll say, less than sober, or at the very least hungover, and they are completely unprepared for battle. And outside is George Washington with his forces. Needless to say, the American soldiers rout the British, and it's a resounding victory for the Americans. Even though not a hugely important victory in the sense that we really had to have Trenton, it is a hugely important victory in the sense that it really gives the Americans the shot in the arm they need to go ahead and make it through the winter. And so it boosts morale and restores a little bit of faith into George Washington. The turning point in the war, however, is a battle that doesn't include George Washington. It's a battle at a place called Saratoga, which is in upstate New York. It's really the turning point in the war, and it's really the very first significant American victory over British forces. We'd had victories before, Ticonderoga, where again the British weren't really prepared, Lexington and Concord, um, where again the British were not expecting a fight, at least not in the type of fight they got. Bunker Hill, um, where again the British just completely were foolish and underestimated the foe. Um, but here at Saratoga, we were ready, they were ready, and the Americans are the victors. Johnny Burgoyne is the commander for the British. He's leading approximately 8,000 troops, and again, he doesn't comprehend what type of fighting they're getting ready to get into. It's a forest, and Burgoyne and the British were prepared for battle on an open plain, an open field. And that's not what Saratoga was. The American general in charge, Horatio Gates, he understands this. And so he and the Americans employ guerrilla tactics. And because they were having so much success using these guerrilla tactics against the British, all of a sudden people started to come and rally to his cause, to his army. And so his army throughout the battle really goes ahead and grows. And in fact, before and after the battle as well, and the battle takes place October 17th, 1777. So we're talking about a year after New York here. But the biggest thing this does for the Americans is it sparks an open alliance with the French. The French look at Saratoga and they're like, okay, maybe the Americans can actually win this thing. And so the French decide to go ahead and support us. This gives us ammunition, this gives us weaponry that we didn't have access before, and probably most significantly, the French will go ahead and support us with their navy. We had no navy to speak of, and the fact that the French are willing to employ their navy to help us out will be one of the things that's a decisive factor in our eventual victory over the British in the American Revolution.